All right. Good morning. So, this is a bit awkward, only because I'm supposed to be here this morning talking about how great it is to be in the movie business. It's so awesome. Uh, but currently, I don't know if you've looked at box office numbers. This morning, specifically, it hasn't been the greatest. So you might get some real shit today. No. Let me explain. I made a movie about a year ago for $5 million with Jason Blum about a cartoon series 30 years ago called Gem and the Holograms. Some of you may remember that. And we made it with really little resources, all in LA, and we didn't have money for chairs. I spent 10 years developing this story of how to reinvent this cartoon for a new generation. I get fans sending me hate mail. I get death threats. I get racist remarks. It's really fun business. Reviewers have been harsh, to say it lightly, and it looks like our $5 million movie, which was released last night by one of the most successful marketing studios in the world, Universal, right now, is going to make about $1.2 million this weekend. Yeah. You heard me right. $1.2 million. That's the estimate. We're not quite sure, but that's pretty accurate there. Yes, we only made the movie for $5 million, but it doesn't get easy when you hear those numbers. And then I'll probably get some texts along the way today saying it's not going anywhere. So this morning isn't the best kind of day. But I do have to tell you that from the bottom of my heart and wounded soul, that I am so lucky. We all are, because we have the best job in the world. We get to tell stories, and we get paid for it, or sometimes not, but we get to tell stories either way. And no matter what people say or do, or whether they pay attention to us or not, whether studios fund our projects, or we do it independently or on our cell phones, no one, not one single thing on this planet, can ever stop us from telling our stories. And so here I am to tell another story. And unlike the movie that's out right now, I get to force you to listen. So, so how did I get here? I sort of see I'm sure all of us see our lives in movie phases. And so this one I would call the beginning. I'm the youngest of 5 kids. My mom and dad came here from China. They didn't know a word of English. They just knew Beatles and Elvis songs. My dad started a restaurant in Palo Alto. It's called Chef Chu's, and he had a big, big dream. He wanted to have Chinese fast food. This is like 1968. No, there wasn't a lot of Chinese restaurants in that area at the time, and this was his big idea. It was unheard of, and it pretty much failed at that time. It was too cheap and all these, and he just couldn't figure it out. And he wanted, and they rented a little place in this little mini mall next to like a barber shop and a fish market. And my mom said she wouldn't let him give up because her parents had given him money to start this thing, and she wasn't going to go tell her parents that they ran out of the money. So he stuck it out a little longer, and so he started to sort of know the customers by name. And rather than fast food, he started actually having seats, and he started to get to know them, and he started to talk to them, and they started to tell stories, and talk about whatever was going on in their lives. And Stanford students started coming, and one by one they got write-ups. People started to know about it. Eventually, they bought the fish market next door, the salon, the office upstairs, and eventually they got the whole mini mall building, and now the whole thing is a restaurant, and it's been there for 46 years this year. He's giving everything to us kids. And he said, he always said this, America is the greatest place because you can do anything if you work hard and you love what you do. As a child, I watched him and my mom have so much pride in their restaurant. He drew his dishes on napkins before he ever made them. And he can tell you why each ingredient is in the thing. is in the dish. Each length of noodle, each spice or color had a story to tell in the food, and we loved to eat. They're hosts, so every night they would share stories with customers, or customers would share stories with them about their adventures around the world, and I would absorb this. I was around it all the time. There was always life. They always knew who I was. I would eat the leftovers of things, and I watched how my mom and dad were emotionally connecting to each customer, listening, engaging, and eating. I lived in that restaurant, and I knew all the regulars. They built a community in this restaurant that helped sort of raise me, where storytelling was constantly everywhere. And this is the world that I was born into. So I was very, very lucky. Didn't choose it, it just happened to be. And in fact, they never let me work in the restaurant. They said they wanted us to do everything that they couldn't do growing up, so they put us in music classes. I took drums, saxophone, violin, piano, dance classes. They took us to animation classes. I took sports camps. They literally just poured it all into us. We went to the city during the weekends and would watch musicals, operas, or ballets. My mom would dress us alike. She wanted us to be like the Kennedys, so we all dressed with ties and things. One day in our travels, as during that time, my mom handed me the video camera. I was probably in the 3rd or 4th grade, and she said, John, you're in charge of the video camera, and this tool, you will find your destiny. No, she actually didn't say it. She just said, carry the camera. I can't hold my purse and the camera, and don't you dare drop that thing, because it's expensive. But it was huge, and this thing is like, the VHS kind, the battery's as big as like 8 iPhones, and I was this little shy kid, and I didn't know what to do with it, and I would just be sweating carrying this thing around. But I started to learn how to use it. I started shooting our vacations. We'd have exotic locations. I'd get my brothers and sisters to act in it, or I'd force them to be in it. We would have our toys as sort of extra characters, and it was a blast to do it. I found that while I wasn't great at drawing or playing instruments, I failed at most of all those things, or acting or singing, but when I had a camera, all the little things I knew about all those things came together. I felt like I could breathe. Suddenly the things in my head had a way out. It was like the door was open and ideas could pass through me. It was freedom, like taking a shower in a way. I still feel that. And every time I shoot, I become a different person. It's permission to be your other self. Fun fact, in high school, I don't tell people this, I was a mascot. I was a panther, so I had a giant head. And people wonder why, but I wanted the events at halftime to be really fun, and no one would be the mascot, so I had to be the mascot. Anyway, and cheer camp is really fun when you're the only guy there. But the mascot suit, as weird as I can't believe I'm saying this out loud, the mascot suit did give you confidence. When you put those hands on and those feet on, you become something else. You can go dance with whoever you want. You can go sit next to whoever you want. You can do whatever you feel. And that's what I really can't believe I just said it. It's not in here at all, but that's what it feels like when I make movies. And so I would collect all this footage from our vacations, and I didn't understand shots or things like that, but I did see this little mixer in the Sharper Image catalog. I don't know if you remember those, but this little mixer, you could tap into your VHS recorder and your stereo. Probably some of you knew that as well. So I convinced my dad to do this, and some of my best pitching skills were learned by convincing my parents how to buy me things. And I got it in, I figured it out, I cut it together. No one in my family knows how to do this stuff, so I had to figure it out. And I sat my mom and dad down and my family to go watch the video I'd made. And when they watched it, they started to cry. And I knew from that moment on, I was 4th grade, I knew this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And the community around me, the community I had built, supported me. I made wedding videos, bar mitzvah videos, any video that people needed, I did. And the people at the restaurant started to know, oh, John likes to make movies, and because that was the Silicon Valley and it was just starting, this is the 80s, they had beta computers that they would bring to the restaurant and say, hey, Chef Choose, your son, he could use this computer. We don't have any manuals, it's still beta, but try this. Guys from Adobe would drop off software, And I would have to figure this. I was so excited. Every couple months, I get a new computer with new stuff that was kind of broken but would work. And I figured it out. And so by the time I got to USC, I was sort of ahead of the curve of sort of this digital revolution. Because when I got to USC, it was still film-based. So once I got to USC, how did I get into the business? This is what I call the honeymoon phase. I was so excited. All my life, I wanted to go to USC, School of Cinema Television, as they called it back then. And I went there, made a bunch of short films, a short called Silent Beats, which is a 5-minute film about tap rhythms. You can look that up online. I got a ton of awards from that. I got some heartbreak in college, was helped in ways by organizations like Project Involve here, who allowed me to have a mentor and meet other people who I'd work with for the rest of my life, and did a movie called When the Kids Are Away. This was a short film, a short musical. Oh, thank you. And it's about the secret life of mothers. This is actually not online. You can't find this anywhere. And it was sort of my calling card into the business. It was a 50-piece orchestra, 20-piece vocal choir. I had to like beg and grind to get everything together. Again, I was 21 years old, and this was pre the internet, so there's no way to sort of release it once we made it. It was just we made it, and it was during that time that when I was finishing, I met some agents and managers and sent them a rough cut of it. And my agent, Rob Carlson, saw it at the time, and he was like, I love this, let's work together, but don't give anyone a copy of the video yet. We don't want this out, let's control it all. So trusted him, and we did not send out VHS or DVDs of it. And he's like, just keep making it better, and by the time you're done, we'll set up some screenings. So I finished it, and we started screening at different places, at different lots, at Sony, at Universal, at Disney, and each one we'd invite the producers that sort of fit my style. And before that, he would send me the scripts of the projects that they were developing there, so I could read it and have a take on these things. So if, by chance, any of these producers would say, oh, we actually like the film, he could say directly, oh, he has a take on your project, this or that. So it was a lot of work, but I was excited coming out of USC, and so we screened it at Sony, and there was like 2 people who showed up, all like assistants of the assistants of the assistants. And then the second place was like Universal, and maybe like 5 people showed up. And they were telling their bosses they needed to see it, but we weren't sending out copies. So they had to come to these things. So by the third one, we had probably 10. Fourth one, we had like 20. And it just kept building. Again, nobody had copies. And eventually sort of we would pack houses with this thing. And it was at that time that Rachel Shane, who was working for Doug Wick and Lucy Fisher, saw my short. And we met, and I went on to the, I did the whole water bottle tour all around town. But it was that film, Bye Bye Birdie, it was a remake of Bye Bye Birdie that I got attached to, pay or play. My first studio meeting was with Amy Pascal. They signed me up. It was like, again, the honeymoon phase. Stuart Blumberg wrote it with Tina Fey as well, and I got a call from Spielberg one day. This is all within a month of me finishing this movie. And it was like that call in Dawson's Creek that you get. And he said, we want to meet you. So we met up, and we had a great 2-hour conversation about musicals. Chicago was just coming out at the time, so it had not dropped, but was just coming out. And so during that rise of sort of the new musical, I was the student who had done a musical, and there weren't a lot of those guys around. So it was one of those magical times. We sold the project to Spielberg. My first actual pitch, complete pitch, I did with my best friend at DreamWorks, and it was with Steven Spielberg, Walter Parks, Laurie McDonald, Michael DeLuca, and Adam Goodman in a room. And we did it we had a chest. I never pitched before, so we had a chest full of costumes and wigs, and we literally acted out the pitch, which I thought was really awesome at the time. But really embarrassing when I think. I have no idea what the conversations they had after that. But it sold it. We got it. So, and it was really fun. I was on the cover of the trades of Hollywood Reporter. There was no online stuff. So it was trades, Hollywood Reporter, of Variety, and nobody knew who I was, where I came from. But even just Steven reaching out helped my career a lot. Then comes the phase that I call the 5-year drought. It's the part that you dread, and I'd always heard about it, but never believed that it could happen to me. And we developed Bye Bye Birdie, and at 2.5 years of going into it, always saying, oh, in the next 6 months, eventually Sony could not move forward with it. And I was, of course, devastated. I'd set up other things around town. I'd set up like 3 projects at Warner Brothers that I was attached to, and a couple projects elsewhere. I'd met with all types of actors from all around town because of these bigger projects. But that setback really took me back. And I remember driving a friend to USC the night I heard that they weren't going to move forward with it, and feeling the shame that did I waste all this time? Was I disappointing everybody? Was I just a sham? So I dropped my friend off at USC, and I remember I was playing it pretty cool, but I remember sitting in the parking lot, and I just like broke down and wept by myself. And it was kind of sad because I'd never done that in like 10 years. But it also felt really good to just let it out. And as soon as I got home, I sort of sucked it up and went back to work. Cut to 3 years later, still nothing had changed. But you learn a lot in that period. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't making anything either. I didn't have a video camera, and I wasn't editing on my own. For those 5 years, this idea, this carrot of you're gonna make a movie, eluded me, and I didn't fulfill that part of my body. The longest time in my life that I wasn't making stuff physically. Then this script comes across my desk. This is literally 5 years later, and I'm in the condo that the Pear Play price bought for me. I'm out of money basically, and I get a script for Step Up 2. And I'm like, it's Step Up 2? They're like, oh, it's a direct-to-DVD sequel to this dance movie. I was like, oh yeah, I think I saw that. And I was like, I don't do direct-to-DVD. And I was like, Steven Spielberg saw my short. He loved it. I'm going to make features. I've been working on it for 5 years. It's only 6 months away. And I talked to my mom, and she was like, when did you become a snob? I was like, what are you talking about? She's like, you trained to be a storyteller, and a storyteller can use anything, even if it's a campfire. And so what makes you think you're so good? And you're like on the bench of a great team, but you've never played. Like, get your 2 minutes, prove what you can do. And I was like, yeah, you're right. I'm gonna make the best damn direct-to-DVD dance movie sequel ever. So I took the script, I ripped it apart, I wrote what I think should be a dance movie. I was like, we need dance in the dance movie. So we filled it with dance, made it really fun, and went back in, and they loved the idea, so I jumped on board. Again, just even slightly a little ashamed, to be honest. And I got a call 2 weeks later as we were developing it, to get it up and running, from Oren Aviv, who was at Disney, and he said, we heard that you were attached to this again, because they had distributed it originally, theatrically, and this was direct-to-DVD, so Summit was just doing it. So he's like, I'd like to hear what you guys are doing. So we came in, pitched it, I made this video, all this stuff, and 20 minutes into the conversation, he greenlit the movie, and he's like, I have a slot that's 9 months from now. Can you finish the movie 9 months from now? I was like, yeah, of course. I had no idea what that meant. We didn't have a script at this point. And about 8 weeks later, we are shooting in Baltimore. So it happened so fast after those 5 years to just go and make something. And it did well. It came out, did well, and I sort of entered what I call the new age of no excuses. This is YouTube started 2006, 2007. YouTube started to happen. Digital was happening full force. And after Step Up 2, after I shot Step Up 2, I said, I'm never going back to a period where I wait 5 years for anyone to give me permission to do anything. We have the tools. I have the editing stuff. Don't be lazy. So in a blog, I started making just behind the scenes stuff just to keep me editing. And I love that feel of like getting in there and cutting again. And so I made this blog, and we challenged me and the star of the movie, this he was like 14 at the time, Adam Savani. We challenged Miley Cyrus to a dance battle on YouTube because she has a YouTube page at the time with her best friend Mandy. So they were called the Eminem Crew, and we were called the Adam Chew Dance Crew, ACDC. And we didn't know her. Literally, we didn't know her. We just made a video saying like. And he had a crush on Miley, so I was trying to help her brother out, and. So we made this video, and she responded. We got all these dancers together. Dancers I'd never met, street dancers, and people all around LA, and it was really fun to make. And she responded 2 days later. We probably got like 100,000 hits on ours, which is really good at the time. But then she responded and made this video that was like crazy with all her music video dancers and lighting and like dollies, and it was, and Channing Tatum and Jenna Dewan were in it at the end. Which, if you don't know, they're the stars of Step Up 1, which is a slap in our face. So we went back with another one. We were like energized. We're like, okay, let's go. So we got all our friends. We brought out our Rolodex. We got like Adam Sandler. We got Diana Ross, whoever would be in this video. Amanda Bynes. We got Chris Brown. We got Lindsay Lohan. All these people who eventually got crazy. But they were. They're actually really good people, but this is pre all of that. So it was really fun, and it really took me back to those wedding video days. And like I said, you don't have to wait for permission for these things. And someone told me at the time, they're like, you are what you do every day. If you're a director, you direct every day. No one's going to give you that label. No one's going to give you that thing. If you're an entrepreneur, you just are. And if you tell little white lies in your parking or in your whatever, then you're a liar in your real life. And that really stuck with me for who I wanted to be in my life, and that I didn't have to wait anymore. So that started my sort of stretch of movies. I've done movies back to back. It's been 7 years. I've done 7 movies in 7 years, all studio films. In between those movies, I've kept myself busy with other projects like The Legion of Extraordinary Dancers, which was a web series we did on Hulu of superhero dancers. And it was just an experiment, big experiment that we wanted to do. And I didn't want to stop, and it didn't stop. But at a certain point in those 7 years, which is currently still going, things start to cement, and you get really comfortable. And that comfort can really haunt you, and is actually really dangerous. And I find myself feeling that, and as artists, we know that when you stop feeling anxiety or sort of stop feeling the struggle, you can get lost in going to Target and getting your groceries and things like that. And this fear, I think, is, the fear that would come into my mind was, am I not good enough? What if critics don't like it? What happens if I'm pigeonholed? Is this thing that I'm working on really dumb? But what I found was fear is the death of creativity. It's the biggest enemy of our art. Anytime I feel it or sense it, again, I'm not immune to it at all. It comes all the time. I'm probably the most fearful, but whenever it comes, I am very aware of it. And you study, you practice, you hone your craft, you listen, you absorb, but most of all, you cannot be afraid, because it's okay to fail. In fact, you should be failing, and that's how you know you're getting better. Fear makes our brain small. And while the brain controls all the things that our bodies do, the really true reason that makes us special, that our brains are to create things that are beyond our body, that crosses over to other people. These are what stories provide to me. A way to go outside ourselves, be part of a tribe, share empathy, inspire, progress our journey through our lives beyond logic and fear. So I had to let go of that fear. Not care about my career or what others might think of me. And this is what transformed me from a filmmaker to a storyteller. Because in that process, I always thought, I'm a filmmaker, I make movies. But I realized filmmaking is just sort of a discipline in a specific, with a specific tool. Anyone can shoot a camera if they just turn on their iPhone. And you can hire lots of people to do it who do it really, really well. But storytelling was different. It put the story, the purpose of the message first, and the medium second. In the same way that I accepted Step Up 2, I would open my brain to say my skill set is actually connecting with people through story. It could be advertising, it could be YouTube videos, it could be dance videos, it could be features, it could be TV shows, it could be pitches even. Those were really fun to start to put together. It could even be an in-flight safety video, which I made for Virgin America last year. It was a whole song and dance thing. And it opened my eyes to see myself as a deliverer of a message, of a positive message, hopefully. And doors opened all over the place for me as soon as I sort of shifted that. I believe as you pursue your career, you need to see yourself as a storyteller because maybe directing isn't your job. Maybe sound is your tool to tell your story. Maybe fashion is the way to tell your story. Maybe makeup, maybe it's visual effects. And the more movies I make, the more I appreciate when a person that I work with that's on our crew is a storyteller first, not a technician, because it bleeds through. And I feel that, and it's in our movie. This mentality allowed me to go from dance movies to a documentary, to big crazy action with explosions, to a tween girl movie, to a magic movie, and it alleviates any pressure or the fear that can pull away from my decisions. It's just where I am at my life and what can I contribute to this message. And in the current state of filmmaking, I think it's more important than ever that we see ourselves beyond just what we grew up with, because things have changed, and story is in everything. Story is in the design of this water bottle. And I think that as we grow and we become, and we have more things like this, I think storytellers are the most valuable thing that, that we can have in this world. Which leads me to today, which is results. When fear is consuming my brain, when fear is consuming my brain, what does this mean? What will people say? The results become very important to people around you. And on this depressing day of stats and reviews and numbers and constant updates, that actually has nothing to do with the story itself, just has to do with selling. What I find is that I am the same person I was 36 hours ago. I'm the same person who grew up in a family that loved to tell stories, the same person that went through a 5-year drought and found myself and found my path for that, overcame it, filled the fear, and I'm still here. And my family is still here. Well, they're at Disneyland right now. They came to the premiere last night. And that was the same movie I'm proud of, and proud of making 36 hours ago. I'm still excited for people to discover it somehow, some way, whether it's on Netflix. Is that a plug? That's not a plug. I was just saying. Someday in the future, because I believe we made the story for the right purpose. And ultimately, we are not defined by our results. We are defined by the purpose of our pursuits. It's about the whole journey. The collection of stories throughout your life that defines what you stand for, how you see the world, and who you are, that's how important to how I want to live my life, and more than how I want to survive in the movie-making business. And just like many of you in the audience thinking right now, what you're going to make next, what am I going to make next? What am I going to do right now? How am I going to get this thing made? I love that, because whether you like it or not, the reason you're here, the reason you've taken the effort to get up at this time and to sit here and to join this great group of people is because we are storytellers in every sense of the word. Some of us were born in it, others discovered it, but we're here because we love it. It flows through us, it gives us that freedom. And by sharing our stories, struggles, and victories with others through story, it reaffirms that while it may seem like most of the time when you're writing, when you're failing, when you're succeeding, a lot of the time that you feel alone, you are not. We all have our obstacles and demons and haters. We all feel out of place and unsure and insecure, but because of that, we know we're together in that journey. And the reality is we won't stop. we can't stop, actually. It's impossible. It's just we're going to keep making things because we got a lot of more stories to tell. Thank you. So I'm open to any questions. I'll give you the truth, whatever way.
Hi.
Yes.
Is this hello? Okay. I'm Linda Pfefferman, and I guess I'm a storyteller. I always said I was a filmmaker.
Yes.
Because this kind of seemed to be the breaking point, breaking of the 5-year fast. I didn't quite understand the sequence. DirecTV came to you. You said yes after your mother, blah, blah, blah. And then you talked about going out somewhere and pitching, and they said yes. And what was that? A different project?
Yeah, no, so Step Up 1 was released by Disney and Summit Entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
Step Up 2, they were just going to do direct-to-DVD.
This is the DTV
Direct-to-DVD model of it. So Summit was going to distribute it
Right.
sort of VOD style.
Yeah.
So that's when I signed onto it.
Mm-hmm.
And once I signed onto it, I got a call from Disney,
Disney.
who, Orrin Aviv over there said, hey, I want to hear what your take on this as a direct-to-DVD property, because we might be interested if you're involved. So then we went back. We started getting into it a little bit. We got the call, went back to Disney, presented what we were working on, what changes we were making, what we were doing, and it's in that meeting that he agreed to do it.
I see.
Yeah.
And who is we?
So Adam Shankman was the producer on it, and Jennifer Gibgot, his sister, and then it was Eric Feig, who was the head of Summit, who gave me that chance, really.
So you repeatedly refer to we, and the we is always different people?
The we is always different.
Okay. Thank
Me
you.
is me and my mascot.
Great. Thank
My
you very
alter
much.
ego.
Hi.
Oh, hey.
That was really
Multiple mics.
inspirational.
Oh, my God. Okay, yes.
That I think a lot of people wanted to applause during the speech, and it was just incredible. So thank you.
Oh, thank you.
I wanted to ask you to give us a little bit more of the minutia of how you handle agencies and the jockeying and that 5 years, and even what happened to you this weekend.
Yeah, I think back at those 5 years, and it's really hard because it gnawed at me rather than felt like it was happening. I didn't realize it was happening at the time. I know that sounds weird because 5 years is a long time, but like the first year, it felt like this movie we have to write the script, which takes 4 months, 5 months, whatever it is, and then and then we did a rewrite, and that took another 2-3 months. So that year goes by really quickly. And you're like, okay, now we're gonna get there, and then you're like, oh, we have a different star that wants to rewrite it. So then you take another 4 or 5 months, and it just. So in my mind, at the time, I'm like, no, we're making this movie. We're on the journey. I just have to stay focused on getting it. And I would tell my friends those timelines. I really gave up on timelines at a certain point because every deadline ever in my career has gone away. So I became less obsessed with that idea. And maybe because we went to school and whatever, they sort of drill that into your brain about timeline. Whereas now I'm more sort of projects driven, I guess, of what I need to do to get that thing done. But it was hard, and I would talk to my agents, and I had a manager at the time, and people who were really loyal. My agent stuck around. I'm still with my agent for all those years. I didn't make money for him for 5 years, and he stayed with me. There was a manager that I had at the time that was hard to let go because I wasn't making a movie, and I needed to do something. And the last thing, I don't think I've ever gotten rid of anybody on my team, and he was a good friend, and he believed in me from the beginning and was there for years. But I knew I needed a change. I needed to like revitalize something in my process. It ultimately wasn't anything to blame for him, actually. It may have just been an emotional thing that I needed to sort of refresh. But yeah, it was a gnawing thing. trying to think how, and then we get on other projects. Like I had 4 or 5 other projects around town that I would be preparing to pitch, and I pitched a lot of other things that I didn't get. So even though I was working on all these things, I have a room full of binders that I would cut pictures out and put in it, and these binders I would go in and pitch, and I'd spend 2-3 weeks on it, and then I would get the no, and then I'd put that binder on my shelf, so there was a lot of work. I would say over about 100 different pitches that I never got.
Well, I would just underscore the point that you went to USC, which is a great school, but then the agents want to put a price on your head, so you're sort of not allowed to work, and you were so ahead of the curve. So, we're now in a situation where your message is really powerful that, we need to just keep working. But it's funny how you didn't make money during that time, but your agent was making money. So it's a business model. I'm not trying to throw the agents under the bus, because I think they're the hardest working people in Hollywood, really. But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I can
to
hear
be
your-
fair, they really weren't making money. I mean, I guess they made that first pair play thing, but it was not that much money. And for 5 years, they would get me in those rooms, they'd get me in those things, and it wasn't being made. I do think it's the culture was also changing at that time. This was 2003, 2002. 2002. The studios were closing. I mean, there was like 12 studios at the time, and by the time I actually made my first movie, there was like 9, and then now I think there's like 7 or 6. And so it was a changing, weird time. And then there's certain studios wouldn't even look at you if you were a first-time filmmaker. That was hard because everyone was telling you, "Oh, you're so great, you have so much potential. We don't do first-time filmmakers. Or make your first movie and then we'll see you." And then I couldn't make my first movie because I never had a movie. So that constant turnaround was always very, very frustrating.
Yeah.
So what I found now that what I love about doing diverse projects, going from Step Up 2 to Step Up 3, a lot of people said, "Don't go. Why, you already did a Step Up movie. Like, what's the point of going back?" One, I had a really great time doing it. 2, it was we got to shoot 3D, and I was like, I just want to learn 3D, and this is like pre-Avatar. And so every movie I go into, I feel is a great learning experience. I'm not the greatest storyteller in the world. I love to make it, and I love to learn and go through it. And if the studios will pay for it, then so be it. But I got to learn how to do 3D in that. And then for G.I. Joe, or actually Justin Bieber, I had never done a documentary before, so I got to follow him around and be in that life, and that was really fun and interesting to use YouTube videos as part of the storytelling, use social media as part of the storytelling. Then going to G.I. Joe, $125 million big action explosion, I'd never done explosions before. I love movement to tell stories, so I thought it could translate a bit. Never designed a world before, so I thought that was something I could learn. Then going back to do another Justin Bieber movie, everyone was like, "What are you doing?" But I thought it was a fun thing to go and see that part of his life that he was at. Whether people went to go see it or not, it was a moment in his life I thought was really interesting. And then Gem, again, people were like, "Why are you going to go do this tween movie, little girl movie?" And to me, diversifying and trying different things is like, as storytellers, that excites me. I don't care if I'm making it not for my friends and for this other group. And it tested me how I could figure that out. And with Now You See Me Too, which is what comes out next year, what I'm working on now, I got to work with the best actors in the world, with Morgan Freeman, Michael Caine, Mark Ruffalo, Jesse Eisenberg. And for me, that was I couldn't get other movies because I had never worked with other real big actors before. And so this was another sort of door opening for me. So no matter what stage I was in, there was always something that people could say like, "Oh, he doesn't work with real actors," or "He doesn't do that." So for me, I'm like, I want to squash all those bugs. And so then I can choose to do whatever and have proof that I can do any of those things. So
Right on.
thanks.
Hey, Matthew Tibbenham here, a writer-director, and thanks for
Nice.
speaking today. Very encouraging. I guess kind of what related to that question about the 5-year drought.
Yes.
You always hear it's like, and he had a short film, and then 5 years later, ... And so what really I mean, I know you're pitching and developing things, but how did you survive? How did you make money? Or was it just all?
Well, I was
stomach?
lucky with the with pay or play. They don't really do that anymore. But at the time, it didn't get me that far, but it got me a couple years into it, and I got help from my family. I realized that not everybody has that support system, and I think that's part of the reason why the industry has not enough diverse voices in who gets to make movies, because it takes time and it takes a support system actually to get you through the things. I could not have survived without that, and I would have been distracted to go just to be able to survive. So I know how lucky I am for that. But things like Project Involve and other organizations that have really helped along the way, those make real differences to get your foot in the door. I had no contacts in the business. I had to sort of fight for it and prove myself along the way. But yeah, that was sort of.
Yeah, and do you have any suggestions for people in that drought who, like, other than, hey, support system?
Yeah,
like,
yeah, no.
Would you say, like, how would you suggest, what do you do during that
Yeah.
time?
I mean, I don't think I did it right. I think I waited a long time to take matters into my own hands. I think I came up with a lot of excuses of things that were coming and things that I could tell people at dinner instead of actually facing what do I want and what are the things I need to do to go get that. I think I listened to the adults. I think I thought, oh, this is Hollywood. Like, the adults know what they're doing. The adults don't know what they're doing. Like, most of the people you're dealing with are going to be fired in 3 years. Like, they're out. They don't really love movies. I've taken notes from people that I felt like were really important because they're the executive on this thing, they're paying for it, and I made decisions, compromises to fulfill their notes. And then a year later, they're like real estate agents, and I'm like, I changed my whole movie because I listened to that guy, and he didn't even stick around, and I regret that all the time. But I say find a way. This, especially now, more than ever, like, you can make stuff on Vine if you want, on Instagram if you want, and keep that creative juice going, because I think if you're not creating, then you're just sitting there.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks.
Well, thank you for a very heartfelt talk, and for the amazing in-flight video, which I just
Sorry about that.
I just saw. I don't know if I'm going to watch it every time I
Okay.
fly Virgin, but first time is amazing. I wanted to ask you to drill down a little bit on what you think constitutes the elements of the kinds of pitch you like to give on projects. You were starting to talk about the lookbook that
Yeah.
you put together. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you've learned about effectively pitching?
Yeah. I think for me, pitching has been hugely valuable. That's what gets me in the rooms. That's what gets me above, even if I'm not making better movies than other people, to be honest, when you're actually like in the room, connecting with somebody in the room, being able to tell the story in the most succinct way there, oftentimes gets me the job. And I feel like I watched a lot of Steve Jobs keynotes back in the day. I was obsessed with him. I watched every single thing, and he is so good because he doesn't bullshit. And people can read bullshit in the same way that when an actor is acting, like the audience knows the bullshit. And he's so casual and simple. And when he goes up and he says, "Oh yeah, we've been working on this thing. It's really cool. I had this problem with these pictures, and so I just had my guys create this thing. And this is a way better solution. Do you guys want to see it?" And he like shows it to you like it's this magical thing that your neighbor is showing you. And he connects on a human level that when I watch other keynotes happen from other companies, they're talking like tech people. And they're talking not to the audience that's going to purchase that thing, unless, of course, they're talking to engineers and stuff like that. It's different. But so when I go into a pitch, I try to go more towards, and at first, I actually got good advice. At first, I would bring in all these images and things. I was like, okay, I could cut this thing, but really, that's not really what it's about. Like you're going to hire people who can do that better than you. It's good to sort of paint the picture, but really, you're going there to show tone. So for me, I like to talk first about characters and how I think the character, why I relate to the character personally, why I want to tell this story, why I think the themes are interesting, how I think the setting or the type of person this is or the type of characters in here help support that theme or that story. Then I usually go into how these settings look-wise help support that story and that character. Then I go into sometimes, because I am a music guy, I love sharing some imagery or music that goes along with that. Sometimes, depends. I try not to paint the picture too much, other than showing the essence of what the project will feel like and be like, because that's the only thing as a director we're bringing. So sometimes I make a video, but I don't always, and I'm doing less of that now. I feel like it's a lot more character driven. They want to know how you would make the movie better. And if you come up with solutions, for me, what I thought was really effective was I go and tell what I love about the character, how I would shape it, how I think, and I go specific. I go, this scene is actually a really great scene, but it's not as good as it could be. If you had, instead of them having a conversation over coffee, she had a pen in her hand, and we keep zooming in on the pen as the pen keeps tapping on the thing, and the music gets louder. Now you're showing how this tension between the two of them works. Those kind of specifics are really effective. And all you have to do is really pick three scenes and say, you know what, this scene actually isn't working. If you lifted this scene and put it before she finds out that he cheated on her, then actually you would feel for him, or you would feel that tension in that scene much more. Like some of those real world fixes, things that they've been thinking about for months and months and haven't been able to, I think are really, really effective. But ultimately, don't get carried away with, I got this previs. People, frankly, are sick of watching previs in a pitch. It's about the story and how you're communicating that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
How you doing there? I love the concept of we are what we do every day. And along those lines, I'm curious to know, in between projects, do you have things you practice as a director, since there's so many elements to putting a film together? And if not, things you might suggest to up and coming?
That I practice?
That you practice, you know.
I mean, I think pitching is great because in the same way, it's an exercise for me to how to tell a story, and you get to see in someone's eyes whether they're following you or not, or whether they care or not, or whether you're giving them too much detail about some other thing they really don't care about, or when something's on point and connects with that person. I love that. Even when I talk to my friends and see how they communicate to people, I observe people a lot, which is both good and bad. But you can watch how people interact with each other, how people have different currency to what makes them want to do what they do. The more I work with actors, the more I know how important that is. In our movie that we just did, we had Morgan Freeman, who works a very specific way. We have Michael Caine that works a certain point of way. Lizzie Kaplan. They all work in a very different way. Some want the freedom. Some want you to guide them a bit. Some want to fight a little bit. Some just want to be let go. Some are like wild horses that you just have to unchain and then try to get what you can, and you got to just go with that. So I think the more I understand people, I know that's going to help me make better movies and the more sophisticated movies I make, I think that'll help me as I go. So I try to do that a lot. And to me, the thing I practice all the time is I just try to make stuff every day. I don't care if it's a design for my buddy who needs like a logo. Like I'm like, oh, I'll do it. This, and I have a satisfaction. There's like this weird satisfaction about doing that. It has nothing to do with what I do, but that feeds that part of me, and that usually leads to some other idea that then gets me back to where I am and helps me in some other way. But I think you are what you do every day has saved me more times than not. Every time I try to come up with an excuse of why something's not happening, I go back to that one line, and there's no bullshit in that line.